Hi, I'm Dr. David Dobson. Welcome to Conversations. Today, my guest is Grayson Francoeur. Grayson is a MSc Marketing candidate at University of Saskatchewan. Today, we will discuss Grayson's MSc thesis, which is a MyTex project with Saskatchewan Roughriders Football Club. It's a pleasure to have you on my show, Grayson.
Thank you, David. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Grayson, please share with us a little bit about the project you are working on for your MSc thesis.
For sure. Well, I'm in my second year of my Master's of Marketing program at Edwards School of Business at University of Saskatchewan, as you mentioned. Part of my degree requirements are to develop a thesis and conduct original research. So I'm currently in the process of doing that. At which point I'll have to actually defend it all and so forth. And I've had the great privilege of being born and raised in Saskatchewan. So working with the Saskatchewan Roughriders is kind of a weird, surreal thing, but it's been really good for me and for um, my early development as being an academic to work with not only a great set of supervisors, but the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And it's been just we found it to be such a great opportunity to when we knew that we were going to be working um, with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, that it would be a fabulous idea to study their fans, to study football fans, and do that all within the scope of consumer behavior and rituals and collective identity and all of that theoretical stuff. And there is perhaps no better group of fans to study all of that behavior than the Saskatchewan Roughrider fans. So two thumbs up.
So, what makes so different being a fan of Rough Riders? I know they're a great football club here in Canada.
Well, speaking as somebody from Saskatchewan, and honestly as well, some of the responses that I've gotten from Saskatchewan Roughrider fans
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that it's it's so deeply ingrained into Saskatchewan's identity.
yeah,
The team, that it puts Saskatchewan, the Riders rather, put Saskatchewan on a national stage and allows
yeah,
them to compete at a national level.
yeah,
It is maybe the biggest thing that Saskatchewan as a province has
yeah,
representing its identity. And so many
yeah,
people
yeah,
see them and the Riders as sort of this idea about being an underdog
yeah,
and just ideas again of
yeah,
hard work pays off, and if you
yeah,
kind of stick through the rough times and the
yeah,
losing, then when you experience
yeah,
victory, it's just that much more sweet. And a lot
yeah,
of people kind of internalize those feelings
yeah,
and
yeah,
really resonate with them. And
yeah,
I mean, just kind of on a tangential note here, but almost every interview that I've had, I've asked them what's kind of
mm,
a time when you've seen or talked to another Riders fan
yeah,
somewhere out in the world that you didn't know, and everyone, without fail, had a weird, funny story of being in Europe or in
yeah,
the boonies, out
yeah,
in the middle of nowhere and running into another Rider fan because it's just
yeah,
so ubiquitous too. It's so
yeah,
strange. Of
yeah,
all places, it's Saskatchewan, but it's true.
yeah,
It's really kind of fascinating.
yeah, yeah. So, Grayson, what brought your interest to this specific topic um, on this project?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I have pretty deep interests in qualitative research, and it's
Uh-huh.
especially in consumer behavior, more anthropologically
Yeah,
oriented work. I like to understand why people do what they do.
yeah,
Um, and then beyond that, I can fairly easily be persuaded if I think the topic is interesting enough. And so when it came to sports fans, generally speaking, I don't watch sports. I have nothing against sports. I played baseball as a kid and I love baseball, but
nice.
but sports as a whole, it's not
Yeah.
something that was hugely part of my own identity.
Mm-hmm.
But when my supervisors, Marjorie and Adam, came to me and they said,
Yeah.
we have been in contact with the Rough Riders and they
Yeah.
are looking to have research done. Would you be interested in
Mm.
maybe seeing where this could go?
Oh, nice.
How could I not say yes to
Exactly.
that, you know? And so we were
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
workshop some ideas of what we think would be most interesting
Yeah.
and kind of follow through with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Project you are working, it's a My Tax project. Can you elaborate a little bit what is My Tax project involvement here is?
Yeah, for sure. Um, so in Canada, a My Tax project or a My Tax Accelerate project is
Okay.
essentially, or in my context, it is a project between a student researcher,
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
a business such as the Saskatchewan Roughriders,
Okay.
and the government.
Oh,
And
nice.
if I
Mm.
apply along with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, we can put together a proposal
Mm-hmm.
for a project and submit it to the government for funding, which we're still in
Okay.
the process of doing, but
Okay.
it's looking pretty good.
Oh, nice.
And supposing that gets approved, then
Mm-hmm.
I get essentially paid to do the research for them. I
Oh,
would
nice.
have to deliver my results to them by the end of it, and hopefully
Yeah.
have actually found or created something that is useful to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so on my tax, at least in my context, is just a way to support me doing my research and
Yeah.
to help a business, you know,
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah. Grayson, how far along are you in your project?
yeah, so it's kind of an interesting topic
Yeah.
to discuss
Yeah.
because I mean, currently I'm coding interview transcripts.
Okay.
I mean, but that doesn't quite encapsulate. I feel like I have to really talk about the research design to really
Yeah.
flesh out
Please.
where we're at. But
Yeah.
so the way that myself and my supervisors thought that we could not only create something that's useful to the riders, but also new and theoretically salient is to actually do a grounded theory approach to exploratory research,
Okay.
a la Corbin and Strauss. Were
Okay.
kind of, if anybody hears that and is raising eyebrows. Um, so this approach would essentially allow us to kind of go into this research
Yeah.
kind of with like this nascent open-mindedness and be able
Yeah.
to continuously analyze the data that we get so that we can hone in on like the
Mhm.
really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and again, with the end goal of actually producing new theory,
Yeah.
and something to deliver to the riders. It's pretty ambitious, I think, but
Oh,
I'm
nice.
very excited, and I'm also like having gone through all the steps and um, doing everything according to
Yeah.
how I'm supposed to be doing it because it's my
Yeah.
first time doing research. It's very
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
It's and with the exceptional guidance of my supervisors, like it's looking really good, and I'm very excited to
Yeah.
actually put it all together now.
So maybe perhaps you can share some of your observational experience at
Yeah,
the field.
for sure. Um, when we first we began this research by collecting data because we figured it would give us a good direction to um,
Yeah.
do subsequent research. And
Yes.
so we began by conducting two observational field studies at Saskatchewan Roughrider football games last season, kind of
Okay. Nice.
in September and October.
Hmm.
We just went out to games and essentially just I observed and wrote down, took field notes, very, very
Yeah.
dense, scrupulous field notes. Again, that's an environment. I'm not a football fan. I haven't
Yeah.
gone to any. So that environment was fairly foreign to me, which was
Yeah.
an asset. Because if anything stuck out, like, why do people do that? What is the meaning of
Yeah.
this? You would just write that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And then really interesting things would come
Mm.
forward from that.
Mm.
And sure enough, after conducting those two field studies, we found a really interesting instance where fans would, especially if I guess for context, last season the Saskatchewan Roughriders had a very, very poor season. They didn't do well at all, and it was very demoralizing to many of the fans. And after the 2 games that I'd been there, both times the Riders lost pretty decisively, and the fans, even with 10 minutes still left on the clock, which is more than anybody who knows American football knows that that's more than 10 minutes game time. That's a lot of extra time to be leaving early. A lot of fans were already filtering out.
Okay.
And so I went over and I asked the people why they were leaving, and they gave their excuses. Oh yeah, we want to beat the traffic, and this and that. But one of the main sentiments really was that they found it very difficult to watch the Riders just losing and losing and losing. And so when they knew that that was their fate, or when they felt like pretty assured that that would be, they left. But then we went and talked to the Rider fans who weren't leaving, who sat right until the last second on that clock, even if it said 1 left, like they sat right until it was done. I asked them, why did you wait and sit through the whole game if you knew pretty decisively that they were going to lose? And they said, well, we're not part-time fans, we're full-time fans. It's a sign of respect to the actual team. And, I'm getting my money's worth and all these things. And so we found this was really, really cool. And we wanted to look into that phenomenon more, because the whole idea of being a part-time fan and a full-time fan almost kind of differentiates a level of hierarchy based on actions or interactions that we do. And there is information, there is literature out there already that talks about how fans, sports fans specifically, they look around at other sports fans and they evaluate them based on what they're wearing, how they're acting, and etc. And they kind of self-sort themselves into a hierarchy, or not into a hierarchy, but they assess their level of fandom. And so we're kind of trying to jump off of that a little bit and say, okay, it goes a step further, and now it's a hierarchy that they're actually doing. And so how deep does the hierarchy go, and what are the actions and behaviors, etc., that make one go higher up or lower down in a hierarchy, so to speak, with the social capital of actions and behaviors.
I mean, after all, like, these professional sports are entertainment at the end of the day. But I do also notice that in many other clubs, that when the teams are winning, there's a huge energy, like everybody want to join the bandwagon. But when the teams are not doing good, generally the stadium is empty. So obviously, I mean, there's people when team wins, so there's a lot of like excitement. When teams are not doing so good, then there's like empty seats.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And especially with the Riders lately, when I went to a game, I looked at the stadium and it looked packed to me. It looked like there were so many people. But I got into an elevator just to go up to another, to higher up in the stadium seating. And the elevator worker was just talking to another worker and said, this is like our lowest turnout in such a long time, which I don't think speaks to necessarily how much Riders fans still come out. I think that more so speaks to my own lack of knowledge at what actually a lot of turnout is. That being said, when it comes to the constant losing, certainly that affects every fan base, because at the end of the day, a lot of people just go for entertainment, and if the game isn't entertaining to watch because the Riders they always lose, what's the joy in that? But that doesn't deter the most hardcore fans. The most hardcore fans go no matter
what. The season ticket holders. So I want to ask you one question, Grayson. So you're doing a project on a topic which you are not familiar with, but now you're doing a project. So do you have any advice, like if you're doing a project, which is a new territory for a researcher like you. How do you really prepare for something like this?
Well, I think especially with grounded theory, the best way that you can, or a grounded theory approach
Yeah,
to, qualitative research or whatever you
yeah,
end up doing,
yeah,
the best way that I've learned to do this is to go
yeah.
in completely blind. Because in my
Okay,
instance, it helped me
okay,
find areas where,
yeah,
I
yeah,
was able to better
yeah,
identify things that were curious
yeah,
or, interesting to
yeah.
me that I didn't immediately understand. And for me, I
Mm,
was able to extrapolate off of those things. And
yeah, yeah,
you can always supplement knowledge if you're
yeah,
unsure
yeah,
um, about a thing or an activity, and you can always
yeah,
interview people to find
yeah,
more out. There's something special
yeah,
in not knowing the answer
yeah,
to something and
yeah,
remaining curious about that, at least for me.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah,
it of course depends on your approach to how you want to be conducting that research. And
yeah,
then if you're going about it a different
yeah,
way, maybe you would want to, theoretically ground
yeah,
yourself so you can look for that. But
yeah,
in my instance, I think it was good to kind of go in blind.
yeah. I,
I mean, when it comes to
yeah,
something like grounded theory, the whole point
yeah,
is to,
yeah,
or at least as I understand it, I'm still
yeah,
new to all of this,
yeah,
but as I understand it, you want to just kind of go in for the most
yeah,
part with
yeah,
not
mm,
completely entrenched in what you already know. You want to find out more things, and you kind
yeah,
of want to have this newborn identity going in,
yeah.
newborn curiosity, I should say.
Mm. So, Grayson, what have you learned so far?
I learned that I guess I've learned a lot of things, and I'm going to be careful to not talk too much about
Sure.
the theoretical stuff because
Yeah.
I'm still in the coding process, and all of
Okay.
that could change.
Okay. Mm.
But things that I feel very positive about that we that I've learned and that I've
Yeah.
learned specifically through this research is
Yeah.
how when it comes to Saskatchewan, or not even Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans, but just sports fans generally speaking, the
Hmm.
most hardcore, because when I did interviews, I studied the most hardcore Saskatchewan Rough Riders fan,
Yeah.
um, is that they are, and this will not really come to any surprise for most, but they're very, very passionate individuals.
Yeah.
They are, as somebody who's an outsider, I was almost kind of intimidated by the idea of talking to really hardcore sports fans because I wouldn't
Yeah.
be able to relate to them.
Yeah.
And I don't share a passion in that, and I don't
Mm.
know
Mm.
really how to connect with that. But the
Yeah.
fact is that if you're passionate about something, even if
Yeah.
it's vastly different, and they're
Hmm.
passionate about something, you can connect with that. And you can, if you show even, and I have a little bit of interest, in
Yeah.
Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans
Mm.
and the
Mm.
riders because of my
Mm.
research.
Yeah.
Even if I show a little bit of interest and a little bit of wanting to know more about them or their team,
Hmm.
man, they're so excited about sharing all of this and
Yeah.
excited about their team. And it's a very,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just I took about an hour each for each interview, but
Mm.
I wish I
Yeah.
could have just stayed and talked with them a whole lot longer because it was
Yeah.
I almost feel like I've kind of gained a bit of a rapport with some of them over
Okay.
just talking about their fandom because they just
Yeah.
seem so
Yeah.
euphoric about it all.
Yeah.
And actually, David, when
Yes.
during the Prairie Consumer Symposium,
Yeah.
I had a question asked to me when I presented this
Hmm.
by Fabrizio from Winnipeg,
Hmm.
who asked me if I've ever looked at hardcore fandom within the context of something like an addiction.
Mm. Mm. Interesting.
And that would
Mm.
be something I think would be worth exploring.
So, what are the implications of your research for your client, for Rough Riders?
Well, I hope that I'm sure the more specific implications and how we can actually make our information actionable to them or useful to them
Yeah.
will come when we know more about it. Um, Obviously, they've asked us to look into something specific, and so we're going to try and do that. But at the end of the day, they've said we know a little bit about about our fans pretty well,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But they need help answering other questions. So I guess we're going to try and help answer those questions
Yeah.
through I guess
Yeah.
through an understanding of who
Yeah.
their fans are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to not be too vague, but I'm also trying to
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
not be too far into it, since
Yeah.
we don't know yet what we
Yeah.
have, and we want to make
Yeah.
sure, and I don't want to
Yeah.
divulge anything if
Yeah.
I don't know the
Yeah.
protocol here.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm just trying to be respectful.
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
Even when it comes to something like the burden of knowledge, I mean,
Yeah.
they do know a lot about
Yeah.
their fans, but do they
Yeah.
think they know a lot about their fans?
Yeah.
Have their fans changed?
Yeah.
Maybe our study will show,
Yeah.
we'll learn a little bit something different that they'll actually
Yeah.
find interesting.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. I think this project was a great learning opportunity for sure. So, Grayson, what's next for you? Or rather say, what's next in your project?
Well, in terms of this project,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have coding left to do
Yeah.
for all my participants. It's
Yeah.
going to be a long, dense process.
Yeah.
But one that I'm looking forward to. I love this work so deeply.
Yeah.
When I finally have it all coded and I can
Yeah.
begin, getting
Yeah.
themes and turning themes into concepts and concepts into um, hopefully theory. Um, I'll hopefully then be able just to put it all together into a manuscript and
Okay.
ship it off to my supervisors, and if they like it, then I can hopefully schedule a defense and
Okay.
defend soon, whenever
Yeah.
that is. It depends on how long this data analysis takes, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So is it easy to make me to make a assumption that now you really get into the research, you love research, so that your next step would be is to go to your PhD?
yes,
Oh,
100%. Uh, I had this funny path actually where
yeah.
I'd taken I've grown up in Saskatchewan, and so it was
Mm,
natural after high school just to go right into the University of Saskatchewan. I went to
yeah.
Edwards School of Business.
Yeah.
And not until my fourth year did I actually consider even research as a possibility. And it was only
Mm,
because I was asking questions in my pop culture marketing class in my
yeah.
fourth year. And my lecturer at the time, Jane, whom now I'm a TA for,
Nice.
um, said, a lot of the questions you ask are fairly high level, like theoretical questions. Have you ever considered about going
Yeah.
into a master's or doing like research or something like that? I
Mm.
said, no, no. But I looked into the program and, of
Mm,
course, applied, got in,
yeah.
and have just loved it ever since because,
Nice.
like Jane said, like Jane noticed, this is the level that my brain operates on. I
Yeah.
feel it very stimulating. I find it very interesting to me, and I was curious.
Yeah.
All that.
Curiosity. Very good. So, Grayson, what is your advice to marketing students who wish to take a similar type of applied project?
Mm. I would say that my advice would be to that, and this is advice that Jane actually gave me, which was very helpful. And she's a PhD student as well over at
Okay.
Boulder, Colorado, and she lectures at the University of Saskatchewan. She's
Okay.
very helpful to me. Um, is that something like imposter syndrome is
Hmm.
always going to regularly occur.
Yeah.
You're always going to feel
Yeah.
really, really smart and
Yeah.
really ahead of the curve
Yeah.
and all this. And then there's going to be a time when somebody comes and just kind of knocks you down a peg.
Yeah.
And I would say to that, just don't be discouraged by that, because
Mm.
it's a very common thing, especially through academics, where there isn't really a ceiling to the level you can achieve. You're
Yeah.
always chasing after the pursuit of knowledge, and you're always chasing
Yeah.
after more and more and more.
Yeah.
And, you know, the limit of that is unknown. And to say that you know everything or don't know everything, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this. You don't know everything, and there's always going to be somebody that'll probably knock you down a peg or two. But just don't be discouraged if it seems like
Yeah.
you're wondering, why am I here? Like, I don't even feel like I know half this stuff.
Yeah.
You do. Don't,
Mm.
you know, give yourself a little bit more grace than that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Very good advice, Grayson. Thank you for that. I want to ask you an entirely different question right now. And you also like watching movies and writing film reviews. You have written about 900 reviews. That's a lot of reviews and a lot of movies for
Yes.
sure. Tell
Yes.
me a little bit about this, your hobby.
Well, I started writing movie reviews in 2018. Uh, and it all started because a friend of mine, Cal, who now has moved to Waterloo to
Mm.
do his smart engineering Waterloo, you know, masters.
Okay.
Um, I we started watching movies together because we realized we didn't really know very many pop culture references,
Yeah.
and we wanted to be able to understand them and communicate using them, and you know, just to
Yeah.
educate ourselves.
Yeah.
And we just watched movies and movies and movies. And when he eventually had to move away to go for school, I just kept
Yeah.
doing it on my own.
Mm.
And I thought it would be a good exercise
Mm.
to, I think it was after 2001: A Space Odyssey, watching that for the first time, because that
Okay.
was like a huge movie for me at the time I first watched it.
Nice.
It, I realized that it's one thing to say you like a movie or dislike a movie, but it's another thing to explain why.
Mm.
And I felt that if I began to write reviews about those movies, even if it was just
Yeah.
amateurish and
Yeah.
not great,
Yeah.
it was an exercise in articulating my thoughts and an
Hmm.
exercise in expressing my own emotions about something, why I
Yeah.
liked something or why I didn't like something.
Yeah.
You know, picking up on the themes of 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 any kind of film or art or anything, and looking and then beginning to look at it on a more nuanced level,
Yeah.
and just the practice of doing that for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now is
Yeah.
has just, I guess, culminated in around 900 reviews of varying quality, I should say.
Yeah.
Some are very good, if
Yeah.
I may be so arrogant to say, but I
Yeah.
would also say that the vast majority are maybe not.
Yeah. 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 Oh, that's very nice. Thank you for your time, Grayson, and best wishes in completing your degree.
Oh, thank you, David. Thank you very much.